Now I'm very pleased to welcome the Program Coordination Manager from the European Innovation Council and the SME's Executive Agency, EISMEA as we call ourselves, Ralf Diestelhorst. Ralf, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ramonas, for giving me the floor. Thank you to Katarzyna for this great introduction into the program, what it is, how it works, what's important for us. And it's my pleasure now to welcome you to this particular part of today's webinar, dedicated to explaining you a little bit more some essential parts of the call for proposals that went online on the 28th of February this year. It is not an exhaustive explanation, I would like to underline, because we have our call web pages, we have the call text. Before I enter the detailed presentation, I would really like to underline that please read very carefully the call text. All information that you need to know, especially on procedures, how to apply, etc., is there. Please also read the quality manual that actually details and explains the steps that Katarzyna was just before me explaining in detail. You will then see what she said, that in fact it's actually simply steps 1 to 5. They are detailed there, including deadlines. So this is very important for you to assess for your potential proposal how much you need to invest, in fact, into building up a team for 28 months of such a project, etc. So go to these key documents and read them very thoroughly. Now back to the to this core part of the presentation. What I would like to do is to guide you through some main objectives of our call. We'll focus on the provisions, the core provisions of the call afterwards, and then I'm very happy to say some words about how to apply, so that you are all on the same page, and that you basically hear from us that it's correct what we put in the call. Next one, please. This was the order of events. I just mentioned it. Let's go then into the objectives of our call. We distinguish here between a general objective of such a call for proposal and then some specific ones. Let's go to the general first. Now, why we're doing a call for proposals? Because we have a network of local contact points, our beneficiaries who receive the grant from us, which is existing. Katarzyna mentioned it's 165 organizations currently, and we want to add some on top of that. And we want to add some on top of that because we want to select new consortia, and for those consortia, the best organizations that we can get to recruit Ukrainian new entrepreneurs above all, and to match them to host entrepreneurs outside Ukraine, because inside Ukraine, it is currently, unfortunately, not possible. So the general objective is here to select, after you submitted your proposal and as part of our evaluation, 25 up to 30 intermediate organizations. Intermediate organizations are our grant beneficiaries, and they will be selected and spread over projects, because we ask for teaming up in transnational projects. These transnational consortia, for which we have precise conditions set out in the call, will be requested to match a total number of minimum 430 new entrepreneurs with Ukrainian citizenship. And this is the big novelty. And then we can move to the next slide. While the Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs program in general works on the basis of the concept of residence permit, so any new entrepreneur or host entrepreneur who is eligible in the program must fulfill a minimum number of months in one of the eligible countries to participate. Here, in this case, it is for new entrepreneurs, it is different. We are trying to match at least 85 new entrepreneurs per project. And those new entrepreneurs from Ukraine or outside Ukraine must have Ukrainian citizenship. So this is clearly a different concept under this call for proposals, but in fact, it's mainly the only major difference. The rest is almost a standard Erasmus for young entrepreneurs project, as some of you might have become familiar with in previous call for proposals, or some of you might have heard about it or will still hear about. So here we are talking about teaming up for a project matching 85 individuals of Ukrainian nationality. And we aim at facilitating the continuation of businesses in Ukraine, of course, with matching these people. Our objective is as well to contribute wherever possible to the EU's triple transition challenge. It was mentioned before. What I would like to underline here is that it is increasingly important in our setting that we are operating today, in the situation in which we are in our continent, but even at global level. I think the overarching keyword here is when we look beyond any geopolitical and peace-related question, is climate change, and that our businesses are supposed to become ever more digital. And here we need simply hands-on skills. We need each and every entrepreneur with great ideas. And that's why the triple transition is important. The Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs program is, however, open and remains open for all economic sectors. When you write your proposal, of course, you're requested to look into which economic sectors you can best tap in. You are requested to look into the most suitable target audience that you can reach out. That's up to you. It is open to all. Make your choice. If you, in the end, want to submit a proposal, make your choice which ones will best contribute to Europe's economic dynamics. Now, we want to promote with this call sharing of experience and information between Ukrainian and other European entrepreneurs. And we also want to support the networking between those. So what does that mean in practice, actually? In practice, that means that you, as a selected, in case you're selected, you as an intermediate organization, so as a local eye contact point, you would reach out to those that want to go abroad or that want to be matched already being abroad. In that sense, it means outside Ukrainian territory, with experienced entrepreneurs. And we want to bring these two candidates, so to say, closer to each other. It means you can have a cross-border match from Ukrainian to the other eligible countries, to host entrepreneurs in the other eligible countries, or you can tap into the let's say pool of talented Ukrainians who have entrepreneurial aspirations but who are already abroad. Next slide, please. When we look at the call provisions, there are, I think, three main subjects of interest to you that we would like to stress here. The first one is the selection process. That's more or less the timeline and the decisive steps that we are going to undertake after your submission of your proposal. Then I'll say a couple of words about the contractual deliverables, not all of them, because some of them are bottom-up, supposed to be proposed by you. Others are mandatory. And in the end, I'll present some indicative financial provisions, the main ones, not going into depth about financial requirements and all that. this is a colleague of mine is dealing with that. It's just setting the frame basically. So let's go to the selection process. We distinguish admissibility from eligibility to exclusion and selection, and finally the qualitative award criteria that we look at one by one. Next slide, please. What do we mean under admissibility? In 2 words, basically it means, was the proposal submitted by electronic means, on time, and is it complete? That's it. And if these are fulfilled, your a priori the proposal is put forward to the next step. It means, complete means, we want all information that's been requested. This is not yet about the quality of the information, right? This is another step. We want that the proposal is complete in the sense of that all sections of the different documents that we ask you to submit, they are filled. And here we go to the core. We will come to that in more detail a little bit later towards the end of my presentation. But as a snapshot here, we can say we ask for 4 sections to be filled. The first one is the section that you do online. When you go to the Funding and Tenders portal, that's where you can start the submission. You go, you click, and actually you will see when you open the section that you have a part A and a part B. And the part A is above all about administrative data, including a summary of the budget, and this you fill online. And then there is a section B where you have to upload documents that we make available to you, and which you turn into PDF, and then you upload them. And this is essential part of your submission set. Some of these documents in the call, we specify clearly which ones are mandatory, and there's no need to send us extra documents. In this particular call, for instance, we don't ask for CVs. We ask them simply to provide some information about the quality of the team that you propose, but no CVs. If you submit them, they'll be basically disregarded. Some other annexes are very important, and they're considered as, if not delivered or not delivered in full, the proposal is considered as incomplete. Let's move to the next one, please. So who can apply? In one word, we're looking for business support organizations that have a good track record in their countries, that know how to reach out to entrepreneurs, to the future entrepreneurs, to startups, or to the seasoned or to the experienced entrepreneurs. These are the core pillars that you should have in your portfolio, that you should address in your daily activities. In legal terms, it means that an applicant must be a legal entity, can be private, can be public. It must be established in one of the eligible countries. And here we distinguish between 2. Naturally, the European Union countries, the member states, are eligible. And we have also a couple of non-EU countries that are eligible, above all Ukraine, but not only. The non-EU countries that are eligible are, for instance, those from the economic area and countries associated to the SME part of the single market program, or countries which are currently in ongoing negotiations to sign an association agreement with the European Commission for the participation in this single market program under which this particular call is financed. The condition we have is then when we sign the grant, these countries should have joined the program. But as we know that currently many are in advanced negotiations, it does not look so bad. So this is a strong encouragement for everybody who's interested from those countries to seriously consider being part of it. We also have a non-exhaustive list of the type of organizations that we usually see in our projects. This is available in section 6 under eligibility, eligible participants. And these are the chambers of commerce, the chamber of crafts, these are business incubators, these are institutes of entrepreneurship from university departments, these are institutes of vocational training. The list is not so long. What I like to underline is non-exhaustive. So meaning also in your proposal, as long as you are fulfilling the core legal requirements and your core mandate is the business support to SMEs and entrepreneurs, a priori, your organization would qualify as being eligible. It's in your proposal that you should tell us why this organization is chosen and why it gives an added value to our program to be part of it. Next slide, please. The second step here, or the third one, is exclusion. When is an applicant excluded? Well, in general, applicants must confirm when they apply that they are not in one of the situations that are specified in the section 7 of the call, and that is called the financial and operational capacity and exclusion. And here we list a couple of them. This would be, for instance, bankruptcy, being guilty of grave professional misconduct, committed fraud, corruption, etc. Those participants are excluded or will be excluded. And I would like to say they can be excluded by the agency at any time. So if we realize or we are made aware of falsified information submitted at the submission stage, even after a year of project implementation, it could mean the end if we are made aware, because we would have the right to exclude applicants. Details are available in the EU financial regulation if you're interested. And then I would move to the next slide, which is referring to the selection step. And here I would like to quote one. Let's like the document that you see hyperlinked. I think it's quite interesting for you to read through. It's the rules for legal entity validation, LEAR appointment, and financial capacity assessment. When you read through that, you know a little bit what you can expect from what the institutions, so the services of the EU actually managing calls, what we are looking a little bit at. In very brief terms, we're looking at stable and sufficient resources in order to be able for you to go through the grant preparation, but above all to run the project professionally and not to run into financial difficulties. That is the financial capacity. What is equally important is, of course, the know-how, the qualifications, the people, the skills, everything that you want to put as resources into a project that you want to give, actually, that you want to render as a service to Europe. And here we have a quality award criterion. We'll see that a little bit later on the next slide. We look here for the competence and experience of the applicants and their project teams. I mentioned it earlier, no CVs, please, not necessary. We have found a way here to ask you for providing to the point and short but sufficiently comprehensive information in a table format in one of our application forms. So once again, the core activity of your organization should be the business and the startup support for young entrepreneurs, for experienced entrepreneurs, for those who really want to be engaged into such an international program. Next one, please. These are the award criteria. And so while we have in the previous slide looked a little bit about, the qualifications and teams, etc., here we really look at the narrative, what you tell us, are the actions that you propose Are the activities relevant actually for the whole program? Is the quality of the project design and the implementation as such, is it good? Is it what we want? And you will have in the call a detailed list of sub criteria to these 4 overarching criteria. A second quality criterion is then about the team and the cooperation arrangements, including multipliers and how you team up with others in your region and beyond, etc. And the last one, but it is important, is obviously the impact. Which impact you with your organizations and involving your entrepreneurs that you want to recruit for this program, which impact can you achieve with that? Please keep in mind that we're looking, if you look at this, like when you look at the score, you see that we're happy with 70 out of 100, but usually that's not enough. So normally, I will not tell you which score we usually have, but be aware that the pure minimum usually, so the pass mark usually is not enough in order to receive a grant. We are asking formally for 70 out of 100, but at the same time, you must have the pass mark in each of the criteria that I just quoted: relevance, quality 1, quality 2, and impact. If the proposal fails on one of them, the proposal has failed. As I mentioned, section 9 in the call details it very well. There's everything that you need to know, and no other criteria will be applied. What you see in the call text is what will be applied in the evaluation that we run after the call closes. Next slide, please. So these are the successive stages of the process. To recap it, we come from the admissibility check, checking the eligibility. I come back to that in a moment. Then the exclusion, bankruptcy, etc. cases. Then we look at, the financial and operational capacity, and afterwards the award criteria on quality, relevance, and impact. And based on those award criteria, we do a ranking, and the bests will be proposed. So the highest scored will be proposed then the grants. We might have, if we have sufficient applicants, we might have the chance to put up a reserve list for a potential budget increase, or in case one of the projects that we want to award in the end decides not, rejects or withdraws the proposal, etc. This we never know in advance, of course. That's outcome of your quality or not quality submission and of our evaluations. I mentioned I come back to eligibility because I wanted to underline actually the 2 or 3 main conditions that we have put forward. We stipulate in every call for proposal the minimum and the maximum number of countries that can be covered and organizations. Here it's important to notice that because of the project type, or let's say the size, we said that we want consortia between 4 and 8 organizations. It can be 5, it can be 7. And you can have 2 organizations from the same country. We want above all that the leader, the consortium leader, has a certain experience in Erasmus for young entrepreneurs. That's why we stipulate that 3 years of Erasmus for young entrepreneurs experience must be in place by the starting date of the projects. That means by 1st of October this year. What is equally important to say, I think, is given the fact that this is a particular call addressed to Ukrainian new entrepreneurs and thus to helping the country in the process of recovery, we want organizations from Ukraine in each of the projects. And the requirement, the minimum requirement, is that we say at least 1. It can be 2 or even more. We don't have any recommendation in that regard, but every project depends to some extent, or I would even tend to say to a high extent, to the smart selection of the partners that team up in an international consortium. So this is one, I think, of the most strategic decisions that you can do and that you must actually take. How strategically chosen your partners are to achieving the objectives you want to achieve. So that's about the stages, and then we can move on. Coming to the contractual deliverables, and here only to the main ones. Now, we distinguish between reports, meetings, and others. Let's look at the reports. Oh, well, here we are basically actually first going to the meetings. Why not? No, it's good. Let's go to the next slide. It's meetings. Meetings, the key meetings in this program are in fact the networking meetings. We bring together twice a year all organizations that implement the Erasmus for Entrepreneurs program, either in Brussels or in other places in the participating countries. And you need to foresee in your project plan, in your budget, in your organizations, the sufficient resources for that. The attendance to those meetings are mandatory. Only in very exceptional cases, we can accept that an intermediate organization does not take part. But in principle, these are mandatory participation, and that is for good reason. Because in Erasmus for Entrepreneurs, you do not only work with your consortium partners. In fact, what we observe is that beyond the project, so beyond your 5, 6, or 7 project partners, you are requested to network with many other organizations that implement the program at the same time. And those people, usually you don't know, or you might not know. And that's why we say we bring these people together. They need to get to know each other. And only via meeting and talking to each other, exchanging entrepreneurs' profiles, exchanging on the strengths of each organization, etc., you're able to learn from them. They are able to learn from you. And this is the richest source of information that we can provide to you in order to do the job properly. And our network meetings are proof of concept, basically. This shows that when people meet together, it works. They're not only getting to know each other, they also have some fun and enjoy the time together in order to actually discuss how each of them can in their activities make Europe even more entrepreneurial. I should say that these meetings are by default one person per organization. That is for cost reasons, because we have some limitations that we cannot organize conferences twice a year for 1,000 people. That's why we say all those organizations that are part of our network, they are invited, they should come, and they should come with one person in order to be in order to ensure that everybody is on board. Next slide, please. No, I forgot one. Sorry, one step back, please. The core meeting, which is another mandatory one, it might not be necessary, but sometimes it proves to be, is that we are kind of, when we are in the middle of the project or after a couple of months, that depends on the progress, we see that it's not going too well, and you send us some feedback that actually you are in difficulties, this and this doesn't work out, etc. Then we have the chance of calling you for a review meeting, and this review meeting is an opportunity to receive support from us. So basically, it's a win-win for you and us. We have a feedback from you on an in-depth feedback of each of the partners in your consortium on what goes well and what does not. And we try to provide you with our experience some tips and tricks that you can use hands-on in your daily activities. Sometimes things change afterwards quickly. Sometimes it needs a further in-depth follow-up. In any case, those meetings that we can convoke at any moment, they are usually very, very useful ones. And so also keep this in mind when you plan your budget. You need to have sufficient budget for all these core meetings that we request you to be part of. Now it's time for the next slide, indeed. Here we come to reports, and I would like to distinguish between those that are not linked to a payment and others that are linked to a payment. In fact, the first report is due after 9 months, and that's the one that we call a progress report. That's the first report where you tell us this and this was done. Here we have done this, we have promoted the program and those many events, we have used a first part of our budget for NEs, etc., etc. You tell us your story. Then we have 3 mandatory deliverables for success stories. And that is for the simple reason that many times in the past we observed that there are great stories of entrepreneurs that intermediate organizations have done a really nice job, but no one knew about those cases. And that's a pity. And it doesn't actually help, Europe showing the kind of added value it has. In Erasmus, you have so many good stories and you have a satisfaction rate of entrepreneurs that is way beyond 90%, that in fact we believe it's worth reporting on that. And this is why we have put in our call that the deliverable on success stories is mandatory. You need to submit to us by months 10, 20, and 28 a certain amount of success stories. And I think we have stayed here relatively modest. We believe it should be manageable because we ask about 5 per year of implementation. Now, if you look at the consortium composition and you think that you might have 6 or 7 organizations in your consortium, and those are supposed to send us 5 per year of implementation, it actually means less than 1 per organization. So think about that. We're not asking for 1 per organization. When you reflect on a potential proposal, reflect on how many entrepreneurs you believe in a time frame of 28 months you would be ready to send us as a success story. A success story is a completed relationship which shows some impact and which obviously has got the positive feedback from both entrepreneurs, from the new and from the host entrepreneur. In the first delivery, you might not want to think too much because basically you're it's rather short after the start of the project, but it's entirely up to you how to do it. Just fulfill, please, the minimum, and then propose even, of course, please propose even more if you believe that you have the potential, and we'll be happy receiving those. So these were reports in a sense, not linked to any payment. We'll have others that are linked to a payment. The first one is the interim report that you submit when you're half through the project. Project duration is 28 months. After 14 months, you will be asked via the e-grant management tool to submit a report, including detailed financial reporting. So financial statements for each of the organizations have to be filled and submitted. A positive assessment of this report triggers the payment of the interim report. What you submit here is an interim report, and I come in another slide to the payment modalities. I'm not going to elaborate on this, but the second one that is linked to a payment request is the final technical implementation report. It's closing of the business, so to say, you submit to us the final report telling us the whole story of the implementation of the project, including detailed financial statements. Next one, please. There are some indicative provisions on the funding side I wanted to share with you. And then there are a couple of thoughts about the financial support to new entrepreneurs. Previous speaker mentioned already the lump sums, and there's something more I would like to mention. And we come then to the payment schedule, and I'll say a little thing about the type of project. Next slide, please. So what do we have? As part of the general funding provisions, of course, first thing is like how much budget is available. We have 3 million euros. 3 million euros for this particular call means that we have thought how much we can achieve with that, and to how many projects we can more or less bring it down. And we have decided that we give per project up to 600,000 euros. And here we have, for the first time ever, and for sure for the first time under the single market program, a co-financing rate of 90% of the total budget for program management costs. And we have an additional one, which are the payments to new entrepreneurs, which we reimburse basically with up to 100%. So that means that when you start implementing a project, you can count that the costs that are eligible, and we come to that later, what is eligible expenditure, those costs will be covered by the EU's budget by 90% for everything that concerns personnel, travel, other direct costs, etc. So, in fact, everything that is not reserved for the new entrepreneurs will be covered by 90%. And then there's the part which is the core of this program, because you're matching new entrepreneurs, so you are asked to give them a financial contribution when they go abroad. Those contributions are paid to each entrepreneur, and there are limits defined. You remember from the previous presentation that we have matches lasting between 1 and 6 months, and consequently the maximum of the most expensive destinations, which is 1,100 euros. So the maximum multiplied by 6 is 6,600 euros. These unit rates are defined at EU level. I'll come to that in one moment. So it's very important that you keep this as a major building block in your budget. And the next bullet, and we marked it here in red so that it alerts you, is that keep in mind that this should not be less than 50% of the grant you're requesting. Not of the total budget, but of the grant that you're requesting. If it's below, we'll have problems. If it's above 50, we'll be very happy, because it means that the end user of the program benefits proportionally more from the project than the people who do the job, in fact. These are the general funding provisions. Let's move to the next slide. I quoted already the financial assistance to new entrepreneurs. It's a must. And the lump sums or the unit costs are decided by the European Commission. The decision was taken in early 2022, and they stay valid throughout the whole project duration. We also have these unit costs, these monthly allowances, specified in the Annex 1 to the quality manual. You remember, I quoted the quality manual earlier. On the call website of EISMEA, we'll have not only the short description of the call and linking to the funding and tenders portal, we also have the quality manual in its version from February 2023 uploaded. This is your Bible or your Quran or whatever to read through to be best informed about how the program runs. And there you also find the unit costs per country where the entrepreneurs go. One important point is also to say that every IO is in general requested to match entrepreneurs. And this is why in the budget, every IO normally needs to budget the NE budget. Yeah, if you have 5 organizations and you decide how many new entrepreneurs each of them can bring into a successful relationship, this should be reflected for this very organization in the budget. And this is important because, in fact, the organizations are, and we have seen in the previous presentation, the IO signs a financial agreement with the entrepreneur who goes abroad. And this is why there is a clear link between the organization recruiting and convincing the entrepreneur to go abroad and, in fact, making the payment. And this is why it is quite important that the one who executes the payment has actually the part for this entrepreneur budgeted in his budget. We have one exception from that rule. No, in fact, it's not an exception, but we have, let's say, one deviation. A specific case, I would call it, is that payments by one intermediate organization on behalf of another one are possible. And I would like to add that it is, according to the grant agreement, it is in duly justified cases. So why do we say that? Experience shows us that that sometimes consortia are in the situation that they realize when they want to send the entrepreneurs abroad that some countries, they apply a taxation on the monthly allowances, which reduces, of course, in consequence, the money that is available for the new entrepreneurs. Obviously, we're not in favor of that, but our means of counter-fighting this are a little bit limited. So we are in our policy dialogue, we always underline in the committees that are behind the single market program, etc., that this should not be happening, but we observe every now and then that it still continues, the practices still continue. So coming back to this very point, this is obviously a duly justified case because we want that our entrepreneurs, those that you match, benefit the maximum from our program. This is why we say, if you have one IO in your consortium and you have another one of whom you know that that country taxes the monthly allowances to the new entrepreneurs, we would a priori look favorable into the situation where you could say, we would like to make the payments for organization XYZ on behalf of them because of certain conditions. Those, however, you would need to explain us in the proposal. So this is the kind of deviation from the previous rule. Next slide, please. And here we come to the payments in the projects. I was referring previously already to interim and final payment. Let's start, however, with the first one. The most important one, or the biggest one, is the pre-financing of 50%, which you are entitled to receive after the signature of the grant. And effectively, we usually have it kind of around the starting date of the project, so that you get right at the beginning of the project that you get a good cash flow in order to start. We then ask for or you then actually, when you submit an interim report, you ask at the same time for an interim payment of up to 40% of the costs that incurred from the day one to that very day when the first reporting period, so when the first 14 months are over. And up to 40 means that we cannot know this in advance. We don't give you 40 as such because it's reimbursement of costs that incurred. So basically here you are requested to report to us which personal costs, which travel costs, which rental costs, etc., whatever, have occurred since day one of the project. These costs that you report as part of the interim report have nothing to do with the pre-financing. We are not asking you, at least not under this call, we're not asking you how much have you used under the pre-finance from the pre-financing. It's something that we are not interested in. We know it exists in other actions, but not under this Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs call. You get the 50% of the pre-financing, you do with that, and you use it no matter how you do. When we are at the moment of interim reporting, we ask you for a detailed cost declaration of costs that incurred. These two together can make up to 90%, obviously, of the project budget. So it means that when we have a positive assessment of your interim report, let's say by months number 16, 17, or 18, you could have received up to 90% of the grant and then still have a good time, more, let's say a year or more than a year to implement. And the rest, so the final payment, comes after the final report. With the final report, you send us the last bill, so to say, the payment request, and that's the balance. Sometimes we have to recover money because the costs of the project were actually less than what you have received. Usually the final balance is a moderate amount still to be paid to you, but that we never know. These are the payment schedules, and I would like to say that when we look at the type of projects we have under this call, I mentioned already earlier that we will have more or less five projects with a grant of 600,000, maximum grant of 600,000 euros. And we have thought that this is basically a good size for those that cover this amount of entrepreneurs, given the fact that we talk about a very specific one with a very specific target audience. We also have bigger projects in Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs. We also have in parallel currently still a bit smaller projects running of quite similar size. So we believe that that this was a sort of like wise choice to give with this amount 28 months of implementation, and we hope that that the projects will succeed. Let's move on. How to apply? I think this is quite important for you to understand. It's just 2 or 3 slides. It's not much. You have a lot of information in case you're in doubt. You have a lot of information on the funding and tenders portal itself. But let me get you into how to use the tool, so the application process, and then a specificity and some explanation on the application forms, and then we'll be in a couple of minutes, we are done and ready for the break. Next slide, please. So the application process as such starts with the first step. You need to create a user account, an EU login user account. Without that, there's no way that you apply. So you register your organization in the participants register on the funding and tenders portal. You just go there, go to the participants register. You get a 90-digit participant, 9-digit, not 90, 9-digit participant identification code. It's a unique one that you use for the drafting of your proposal and for the submission. This is the so-called PIC. In case you're awarded, this remains your unique identifier. We work with this pick. We want to know anything about the organization throughout the whole project duration. Coming back, second important step is to submit the proposal. How do you do that? You do it in 3 parts. I mentioned earlier already, we have a part A, which is online. We have a part B, which includes the narrative part, the content, and we have a couple of annexes. So part A is the administrative information about the applicant organization, the name, the departments, the people who work on that, etc. It is as well a simplified version of the detailed budget that we ask you to submit. You fill this literally online in one table, which is part of the online submission set. And then there's and that's it. That's what you do online, including a little summary of the project, what you want to do. Then there's a part B. The technical content describes in detail the activities, who is on board, why you have selected these consortia members, etc. And this is to be encoded in a Microsoft Word document. It's the application form part B. And here we come to in the next slide, but not yet, please don't move yet. This is very important that we distinguish here which information is supposed to be in which documents. Keep in mind for now, application form part B is the narrative part where you tell us everything about the content of your proposal. And as annexes, we expect from you, in fact, to provide a detailed budget. That's an Excel file. And a specific Annex 5, which is complementary information to the application form part B that I just quoted above. Here you encode qualifications and experience, a list of previous projects, and that is it. This we have more detailed in the next slide. And we have done so because it's quite important for you to understand. So let's recap. The application form part B, it's a standardized template which we cannot edit. This is why, for the purpose of getting specific Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs related information, we have produced a specific annex of the application form part B. This is the Annex 5, which is available on the website of the EISMEA, of our agency. It's only available there, no one else. Don't look for it at the funding portal. Go to the website of EISMEA, to this very call, and you find it further below when you scroll down under the section Documents. And this is, again, to say that therein you provide some core information that are related to the nature of Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs. Please respect the specifications as to how and where to encode which type of information. Let's go to the next slide. And here you see it all in one. The application form part B basically means submitting 2 forms. The core, the standardized one, application form part B, it's the technical description. This you download from the system. You download all the sections that are specified in the instructions for submission of part B. That's at the very end of the call document, at the very end. And you fill this template as much as you can. And then the remaining information that are Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs specific, you fill it, please, only in this Annex 5. It's also a Word document that you download from the EISMEA web. Both documents are turned into PDF and uploaded in the submission system. So it's very important to distinguish in these 2 documents, in particular knowing that without Annex 5, your application form cannot be complete and you cannot expect to be evaluated favorably. So keep it in mind that the application form part B is composed of these 2 forms that we have to receive. Next one. Questions. If there are any questions, first of all, today we have time after all the discussions, after all the presentations were done. I'd like to underline that the call-related questions that are linked to any content or application procedure, etc., so that are not linked to a profile, they are non-IT questions, please submit them to our functional mailbox, SMP COSME Enquiries. And this is very important now. Please always indicate the call reference for which call you are asking these questions, because this email address that we're showing right now, it's valid for all the call for proposals we are managing under the Single Market Program. So if you don't say to which call you refer, we are not able actually to allocate it to the competent team. Once we have received the questions, if it's not already answered, we will produce an FAQ to that, and this FAQ, and here you see it hyperlinked, is available on the Funding and Tenders portal under this very Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs call for proposals. If you have technical obstacles, some technical challenges, there's unfortunately at this moment only one way how we can help you. We need to encourage you to apply to the IT help desk directly using the contact form, which is at the Funding and Tender Opportunities portal. It's very brief, some things to fill only, your organization, your name, where you come from, email address, etc. Describe briefly the subject, and the colleagues will get in contact with you. That was all I had to tell you, I believe. I thank you very much for your attention. It's been very silent, but that's normal under the setup of this webinar. I'm looking forward to your questions later, and I already thank very much the fellow speakers for being on board today, and I'm looking forward to outstanding proposals. Thank you very much.